On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. So excited to have you here with us for today's show. On today's edition of Locked On Blue Devils, we've got Mailbag Monday coming up, where we're going to answer all of the questions that you've got in the world of Duke athletics at this portion of the season. If you haven't done so already, be sure to follow our show on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils. You can follow me on Twitter at _JJ_Jackson_. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever you get your podcast, as you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it comes out each and every day. Be sure to also subscribe to our Locked On Blue Devils YouTube page so that you can watch the show daily. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen every single day. As we get going here in today's edition of Locked On Blue Devils, as I said, it is a Mailbag Monday. Your questions were answered. Thank you so much for sending them in, lockedonbluedevils@gmail.com, or by sending us a direct message on Twitter, or sending us just a tweet of any variety at LO_Blue Devils. Happy to be able to answer those questions for you. So let's dive right into today's show. First question in the mailbag that we got today comes from Joe. Joe wrote in and asked, which Duke men's basketball player will be drafted after Paolo Banchero in the 2022 NBA draft? Well, Joe, the answer to that, in my opinion, is AJ Griffin. And if you ask anybody that in NBA circles, I think they're going to tell you AJ Griffin as well. He's the second guy slotted, a lottery guy. Most people have AJ taken within the first 8 picks. By pick number 8, a lot of draft experts have AJ Griffin off the board. Again, one of the top recruits, top freshmen this season for the Blue Devils, comes from an NBA family, as his dad is an assistant coach for the Toronto Raptors. AJ Griffin played in 39 games this year. He shot 44.7% from three-point range. That's one of the best deals that you'll see in the draft this season, and one of the big reasons why teams are so excited about AJ. 49.3% shooting from the floor, 79.2% shooting from the free throw line. AJ appeared in 39 games, 10.4 points per game, 3.9 rebounds per game, as Griffin is 6'6", 222 pounds, out of White Plains, New York. I think Mark Williams will be the guy right after AJ Griffin. I think Mark Williams, as we're seeing trending lately, Williams is a lottery pick as well, it appears, for the Duke men's basketball team. But AJ Griffin, I think, will be the guy drafted after Paolo in the 2022 NBA draft. Again, that question came from Joe. Joe, I appreciate you reaching out and asking that one. All right, Patrick sent us a question. Patrick writes, what is your expectation for the final record in year one in the Mike Elko era of Duke football? This is a fun question here from Patrick. I love football. It's that time of year coming up this Saturday, the Duke football spring game. We're going to have a lot of questions answered. At the end of the day, it is still a spring game. However, I don't know how much you're going to be able to take from it. But if I have to give an expectation, year one, sort of what I'm thinking, I want to say 5-7. Like, I want to see this Duke team be competitive in several games, maybe win a few ACC games. I think their non-conference schedule is very favorable this season. You look at the last 3 years, Duke was 3-9 this past season, 0-8 in the ACC. In 2020, they were 2-9, 1-9 in the conference. In 2019, Duke was 5-7, 3-5 in the league. In 2020, the only 2 wins for Duke that season were against Charlotte, and then they won one ACC game at Syracuse by a score of 38-24. Last year, Duke went winless in the ACC in David Cutcliffe's final season. The 3 wins for Duke last year were North Carolina A&T, Northwestern, Kansas, and then their closest game in ACC competition was at home against Georgia Tech, when Duke lost by a score of 31-27. Elko's coming from Texas A&M. He's been at Notre Dame. He played at Penn. I mean, this is a really good football coach, and he's been around programs that have high academic values and want to do well in the classroom. And so I do think Elko's bringing this new life, this new energy into the program. I think they're going to be a whole lot of fun to watch in this first season. And so if I'm putting expectations out there, I want to expect 5-7. Like, that's still sub 500. You're still really not going to a bowl game with that record, but that's a good step forward. That's a sign of a program that could be built and to come, and that puts you in position for those awesome 8-4, 9-3 seasons that would do a lot at Duke. If he got this to be a double-digit winning football team, like, oh my gosh, those are high dreams, high aspirations for Duke football. So you got to start somewhere. Year one, let's try to get to 5-7 if I'm setting the expectations. Patrick, thank you for that question. Locked On Blue Devils Mailbag Monday. Arthur wrote a question in. Do you have more confidence right now in Duke baseball or Duke softball? I know when March Madness comes around, we're really focused on the men's basketball side of things. Haven't been talking spring ball much at all with Duke football. Really haven't talked a lot about baseball or softball. As I mentioned, I had the pleasure of going up to Atlanta a few weeks back and was able to be the play-by-play commentator on the ACC Network Extra for a Duke softball game against Georgia Tech. Really loved what I saw out of that Duke team. This Duke team on the softball diamond is loaded, so much so that Duke softball is 32-5 on the season, 14-2 in the league. Complete opposite story for Duke baseball this year. Duke baseball 13-19 overall, 3-12 in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Currently, Duke baseball is last in the Coastal Division. They were swept by Wake Forest this past weekend on the road in Winston-Salem, and Duke baseball is last in the ACC with a .243 batting average. Keep in mind, this past year, the last season that was concluded, both Duke baseball and Duke softball won ACC championships. So I really like the question from Arthur because it is something to sort of sit there and think about. How are these teams doing following their ACC title seasons? Duke softball, I've got way more confidence in them, though, as they're 32-5, 14-2 in the league. As I said, that's good for second in the ACC behind Virginia Tech at 13-1, where you see baseball in the Atlantic Coast Conference still be divided by divisions. Softball, everybody is together, and Duke is second in the entire league. The Duke softball team currently riding a 9-game winning streak. This past weekend, they swept the Cavaliers at Virginia. They've got 2 series left in the league this season, at Syracuse and then a home series versus Pittsburgh. And you want to talk about Duke baseball being last in the ACC in batting average? Well, Duke softball is first in batting average in the ACC. Duke softball, as a team, has a .335 batting average, good for first in the league. That's really, really impressive. So, yeah, who do I have more confidence in? The answer, Duke softball. Let's take a quick timeout. Coming up, I've got more questions on Coach K's final year, the NBA draft, what's coming up next, and some more Duke football talk here on Locked On Blue Devils. Today's edition of Locked On Blue Devils here on this Monday. It's April 11th, 2022. Our show today is brought to you by our friends over at Built Bar. Built Bar is so amazing. I love it. It helps me start my day each and every day. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high in protein. You can replace your candy bars with these. They're so much better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. You compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. You're making a really good decision when you incorporate Built Bar. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and get 15% off your order. Promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Moving forward here today on our edition of Locked On Blue Devils. Again, my name is JJ Jackson, your host of this podcast. More questions. Gabby sent us a question. Again, if you have any questions, I can pile them together, and then every few weeks in the off season for Duke basketball, I love going through and answering your questions. Gabby asks, what do you think was the best game Duke played in Coach K's last season? I think the one game that comes to mind for me was the win at UNC for Duke. They won by 20 over the Tar Heels. You do not see that too often in the series. Duke dominated from start to finish, a wire-to-wire victory for the Blue Devils. They were led in scoring by A.J. Griffin, who had 27 points. It's Coach K's last trip to the Dean Dome, and so much is made going into the game. Is Carolina going to honor him in any form or fashion? And we know how the year ended. We know that North Carolina won the last game there at Indoor Stadium, and then they beat Duke in the Final Four. North Carolina was the very first school to defeat Coach K in 1980. They were the final school to defeat him in his career at Duke here in 2022. So looking back on it, that's just awesome to think about the win that Duke had. And then you want to talk about dominance. Duke won the rebounding battle in that game, and this is the North Carolina Tar Heels who year in, year out, always pride themselves on the ability to rebound the basketball. Duke won the rebounding battle on that day in Chapel Hill, 40-24. Dominated the Tar Heels on the boards. And as I said, won by 20. I think that would be the best game that Duke played in Coach K's last season. Appreciate the question, Gabby. Bruce sent in a question next. Bruce asks, of the 5 potential first-round picks in the 2022 NBA draft on the Duke team, who is most likely to return to school next season? Bruce, I think there are 2 options here. I think it's Wendell Moore Jr. or Trevor Keels. As I was asked earlier, Paulo's for sure gone. Paulo is going to be a top 3 pick in this year's NBA draft. I also think A.J. Griffin is a surefire lottery pick, and it seems as though the consensus is that Duke center Mark Williams is going to be a lottery selection as well. We've seen first-round projections throughout the year for Wendell Moore Jr. and Trevor Keels. Not as many people all agree that those 2 guys will be first-round picks going into this year's draft, but it's Wendell Moore Jr. and Trevor Keels that I think are most likely to return next season. Wendell, again, 6'5", 213. He averaged 13.4 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 50% from the floor, 41.3% from 3, and 80.5% from the free throw line. Trevor Keels, 11.5 points per game, 3.4 rebounds per game, 2.7 assists, 41% shooting from the floor, 31.2% from three-point range, and 67% from the free throw line. Keels, of course, 6'4", 221 pounds. I think there are a couple of different ways to look at it. It could be Wendell Moore Jr. most likely to return because he is a junior. That means next season would be a senior year. He's got 1 year left. He does have that COVID year, although I do not see, get that out of your head. There's no chance Wendell Moore plays 2 more seasons for Duke men's basketball, the way they're recruiting and the way he wants to move forward in his basketball career. So it could be like, hey, Wendell, you're almost to the finish line. Come back, go 1 more year at school, have your senior night, do all that for Duke basketball, and be remembered as one of those great 4-year players for Duke. That's one way to look at it. And then from the Trevor Keels perspective, look, he came onto the scene really high. 25 points in the first game of the season against Kentucky, the big win for Duke. And then there was inconsistent play throughout the large portion of the season. Duke was undefeated in games where Trevor Keels scored 13 or more points until the Final Four game. Trevor scored 18 and Duke lost. That was the first game of the season when they got a large scoring number from Trevor and were not able to win. But at 31.2% shooting from three-point range, Trevor Keels is a better shooter than that. And NBA teams definitely want to see that if that begins to hurt his stock. If those reports start to come back, I think there's true value in bringing Keels back for another season. All signs seem to indicate that Jeremy Roach will come back for his junior year, and we know that Keels and Jeremy Roach played at St. Paul VI High School together, and so for them to get 2 seasons of playing college basketball, that would be a fun storyline to watch. I do think there's room for Trevor Keels to improve his stock. Wendell Moore Jr., as much as you would love to see him back in a Duke uniform for the 4th season, I don't know that his stock gets much higher than it is. I asked Ryan Lohman at the Duke Nation on our show just last week. You can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. I said, look, if we're looking 5 years down the line, if you're having a bet on one of the NBA careers between Wendell Moore Jr. and Trevor Keels, we're both in agreement that it is Keels. He's younger, so he's got opportunity there to continue to improve, and I just think he's going to be a better player at the next level. That being said, I truly do believe he could benefit from another year in college basketball. I think ultimately both guys do end up leaving. But as Bruce asked, of the potential 5 first-round picks, who is most likely to return next season, I think I'm going to lock in Trevor Keels. Appreciate that question. All right, Mailbag Monday edition of Locked On Blue Devils. Just a few more questions to go. We'll answer those in just a moment. Today's edition of our show is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all your betting stats and sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Final few moments here today of Locked On Blue Devils. Again, JJ Jackson here with you. If you're listening to us on a podcast app, particularly the Apple Podcast platform, I would greatly appreciate you leaving us a 5-star rating and review. It's been a little bit since I've had 5-Star Friday, but if you write out a written review, I give you a 5-Star Friday shout out on this very show. So take the time to do that so I can give you some love by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. It would mean a whole lot. All right. I got a question on Twitter from Devil in a Blue Dress. I love that. That's so creative. A Duke fan through and through. So Devil in a Blue Dress sent me a message. What is the latest in the world of Duke men's basketball recruiting? Thursday and Friday last week were huge for Duke as they added 2 more 5-stars to their class of 2023. Tyrese Proctor on Thursday, a 2023 Australian point guard from Sydney, announced his commitment from Duke. He posted a video saying he's excited to join the greatest hoops fam in the game. He's going to be, get this, 15,492 kilometers from his hometown when he comes to play for Duke basketball. The most recent Australian Duke basketball player was Jack White, and we all adore Jack White. With all respect due to Jack White, Tyrese Proctor is a much better prospect. He's the number 1 international prospect. As soon as he committed to Duke, you saw him get the high 4-star, low 5-star rating. It's going to continue to grow as he moves forward this next season. He chose Duke over the G League, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Arizona, and Arizona State. So thrilled to see Tyrese Proctor join the Brotherhood. That's a big-time pickup for Jon Scheyer. Friday, Mackenzie Bacco committed to Duke basketball. The 6'8" forward, he's number 3 in the entire class. He's the number 1 small forward in the country out of New Jersey. In the Nike EYBL circuit most recently, Bacco's averaged 16 points per game, 4 rebounds per game. He chose Duke over Kentucky, Memphis, Ohio State were his final 4. Again, 5-stars right now in the 2023 class for Jon Scheyer. He is way ahead of the game. I saw a stat that 9 players in the class of 2023, 5-stars, have committed to college. 5 of them are going to go play at Duke. You're talking about Caleb Foster, Sean Stewart, Jared McCain, Tyrese Proctor, and Mackenzie Bacco. Great job for Jon Scheyer, and that's the latest in the Duke men's basketball recruiting world. Thanks for the question, Devil in a Blue Dress. Brooks sent me a question. What's the update on the quarterback battle for the Blue Devils? Well, quarterback battle mainly down to 2 guys. You've got Riley Leonard and Jordan Moore. Both guys are going into their sophomore season. Leonard, 6'4" out of Fairhope, Alabama. Jordan Moore, 6'2" sophomore out of Sykesville, Maryland. Of the 2, Leonard, more of your pocket passer, so to say, although can use his legs a good bit. And Jordan Moore is more of your dual threat, run first quarterback. Last season, Riley Leonard appeared in 6 games for Duke. He was 37 of 62, 59.7% completion, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT, 381 yards through the year. Jordan Moore played in 10 games. Duke had some running packages for him as he had 44 rush attempts on the season, 221 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. He was 9 of 19 passing through the year for 95 yards, 1 passing touchdown, 47.4% completion. So just in the sample size a season ago, you could see there Riley Leonard was the more accurate passer of the 2. Luka Diamond did go into this spring in that mix as well, another sophomore, but we've seen the reports that it looks like he's moved to wide receiver. So the latest update from the quarterback battle seems to be those 2 guys, Riley Leonard and Jordan Moore. Good question, Brooks. Ryan sent a question. How do you balance expectations for Jon Scheyer, given that he is a first-time head coach, but has a tremendous recruiting class? Really good question, because you look at the last 2 coaches for Duke. I did this research. Mike Krzyzewski, in his first season leading the Duke Blue Devils, 1980-1981, he went 17-13. Duke went 6-8 in the ACC, and they made it to the NIT quarterfinals. Bill Foster was the head coach of Duke before Coach K. And in Bill Foster's first season in 1974-1975, he went 13-13, 2-10 in the league. So Coach K just 4 games over 500 in his first season. Bill Foster was an even 500 in his first year. Year 4 of the Bill Foster era, Duke made it all the way to the NCAA title game, but lost the championship to Kentucky. His last season as Duke, he made it to the Elite 8 with the Duke basketball team. Crazy story that's been reported over the past few months about Coach K's final season, about the Duke athletic director saying at the time to Bill Foster, look, basketball is just not going to be in a position to make money. I'm not going to give you as much money as the University of South Carolina is offering you. Probably best you go ahead and take that job. He did. And Coach K, how ironic. Coach K takes over the program because Bill Foster left. The team literally went to the Elite Eight the year before Coach K started. And Coach K ended his career as the wealthiest head coach in college hoops history. So just a bad shot there from former athletic director Tom Butters there for Duke. So I think in terms of balancing expectations for Jon Scheyer, given that he is a first-time head coach and has a tremendous recruiting class, I think it's fair to have the highest of expectations because the program was sustained. That run by Bill Foster was over a 6-year period. Yes, in year 4, they made it to the title game. Year 6, you're in the Elite Eight. Coach K made it to 13 Final Fours over 42 years, more Final Fours than anyone ever. And the way Duke has been recruiting over the past decade, we're already seeing it in Jon Scheyer's first 2 recruiting classes. We know he's respected as an X's and O's guys, and now we're going to get to see that. So in terms of balancing expectations, I don't know necessarily that you've got to alter them that much at all. Duke is still going to be a player in the world of college hoops, and when you've got the best recruiting classes, you put yourself to have the most talent on your roster each and every year, and I think expectations should be on the higher end of things. Thanks for the question, Ryan. Last question today, this Mailbag Monday edition of Locked On Blue Devils comes from Christina. Christina asks, what's the latest in Jon Scheyer's first staff coming together? Well, we've got Chris Carrawell, of course, who's coming back. On Monday, today, Nolan Smith was officially introduced at Louisville as their associate head coach on Kenny Payne's staff. So he's going to Louisville to stay in the ACC, joining the program where his dad won the national championship in 1980, starring for the Louisville Cardinals. Now Nolan Smith goes to join Kenny Payne's staff. Mike Schrage was introduced last week as a member on Duke's staff. We talked about this with Ryan Lohman at the Duke Nation last week on the show, and he was introduced as a special assistant to the head coach. So he didn't even take an assistant coach spot. There are 2 openings still left for Jon Scheyer. Schrage had 9 seasons previously at Duke as an academic advisor in the program and then took over as the director of basketball operations. 8 seasons at Stanford as an assistant coach on Johnny Dawkins' staff. 1 season at Butler as an assistant with Chris Holtmann. And then he followed Chris Holtmann to Ohio State, where he was at Ohio State for 2 seasons as an assistant coach. In the last 3 years, Mike Schrage has been serving as the head coach of Elon basketball. I think the 2 candidates, Emil Jefferson seems very likely and in position to be promoted to a full-time assistant coach, which kind of fills in that void of a younger coach that's really going to excel recruiting, I think, if you're talking about Emil Jefferson. And then, Wojo's name is out there a good bit. Steve Wojciechowski, the former Duke associate head coach. He played for Duke under Coach K, as we know, in the mid-'90s. He was the head coach at Marquette for a number of years. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Wojo comes to join the staff. I think it'd be great. The experience that he's going to have as a head coach himself to kind of be there and be sort of a sounding board for Coach Scheyer and that sort of thing. Not that John's going to need anything like that, but I think the other experience as a Duke associate head coach would be awesome to get Wojo back and recruiting for the Brotherhood. I think that'd be big. And if any other name pops up, I'm sure Coach Scheyer is going to make an awesome decision. And I can't wait to find out what it is and to see how the Duke program continues to move forward. That does it for today's edition of our show. Another good edition of Mailbag Monday. Thank you again to everybody who sent in questions today. Again, we got them from Joe, Patrick, Arthur, Gabby, Bruce, Devil in a Blue Dress, Brooks, Ryan, and Christina. So grateful to hear from all you guys. If you have a question that you want answered, send it our way. Email lockedonbluedevils@gmail.com, on Twitter at @LO_Blue Devils. You can connect with me on Twitter at @JJ_Jackson_. Be sure to subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Blue Devils as soon as it's available each and every day. Now check out the Locked On Hornets podcast. Let me give some shout out to the Charlotte Hornets. Here in our state of North Carolina, the Hornets qualify for the NBA play-in game a little bit later this week. Go listen to what they're saying right now. That's going to do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.